Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I will never be happy that she's doing better by her do-over family? My mom was not active in my life when I was young. She left it all to my dad. He was such a good dad too, and he did his best to make up for mom never being around. They were married, by the way. She was married to her job mostly, or always doing her own thing. Dad would try to bring us together, but she always had excuses. A year before he died, I noticed he started to grow more frustrated with her. She'd let us both down many times, and they started arguing. The day he died, he got into a crash. He stormed out of the house after mom accused him of trying to pawn me off on her, and how she wasn't some cheap babysitter. After he died, she was in a weird place for a few months. I hardly saw her and spent most time at my uncle, Dad's best friend's house. She met someone new and dedicated a lot of time to him. I was 11 when Dad died, had turned 12 when she met her husband. It was obvious how different she was with her second husband. It was also obvious when she had kids with him that she was a more involved mom. She actually went with them to see Santa, took them places, made memories. All stuff she never did with us or even me. I resent it, I'll be honest. Her husband noticed it before I moved out of their house and called me out on not being happy for my siblings and him. I told him he got everything my dad had begged for. That I would not be happy she let my dad die unhappy. That she made me unhappy my whole childhood. He called me childish, but I told him I didn't care about his opinion or his happiness. I moved out before I graduated and before I even turned 18. I live with my uncle now. It was just better. Ever since, Mom has been like, why don't you visit? Why do you never call? Why do you never answer texts? She texted me twice before that point in 3 months. She asked to meet me last week, so I did, since she was paying. She told me that she was doing better by her family now, and did not like that I carried such a clear grudge. She said she's doing everything with them to make sure they don't miss her like I did, and I should be happy for her and them. That she'd like to think my dad would be happy for her. I told her there was no way he would have been happy, that she ignored the kid he had with her, and did everything he wanted with me for other kids. I told her at the end of his life, Dad probably didn't even love her anymore, like she clearly never loved us. I told her I will never be happy that she's doing better with her do-over family, that she could take her pawning off and cheap babysitter butt and stay the hell away from me. She called me spiteful and said I should love my siblings enough to be glad for them at least. She also sent me a text over the weekend saying I'm just like she was, and congratulations for being what I hate. Am I the a-hole? Also, siblings in quotes because I do not consider them that. They are her kids, but she's not really my mom, so they're not really my siblings. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She may be doing better by her new family, but what is she doing to make amends with you? She's simply trying to get you to give her a free pass. Try not to let this experience poison other areas of your life. Seek help if needed, and move on in a positive way. Nothing. That has never been on her radar. She just decided to start over, instead of fixing her mistakes. Just don't let that influence your choices in a negative way. Not the a-hole. She literally said in your face, yeah, I neglected you, ignored you, and outright refused to watch you. But I'm doing it for them now, so why aren't you happy? Your rag donor doesn't deserve the time of day. I'm so sorry for the loss of your father. Right? Like, what do you want, a cookie? Part of me wonders if she's looking for that cheap babysitter in somebody else. That's what I was thinking when I read that she wanted to reconnect with you. Not the a-hole, but do consider therapy to help you through this. Both the loss of your father and the utter wretch of an egg donor. I'm sorry for the loss of your father, and glad that you had an uncle that also stepped up to help you. Family is often, and better, what you make, not what you're born to. By saying OP is now just like she was, I would say that was exactly your intention by reconnecting. I'm very sorry this is dredging up so many awful things for you, OP, now that you're finally in a better place. Don't waste any more time or mental energy on your sorry excuse of an egg donor. Next story. Am I the a-hole for correcting my half-sister about my parentage and saying that my mom's husband isn't my dad? I, 17 male, am the kid of divorced parents. I live with my mom, her husband Steve, and their daughter Molly, 5. My dad lives halfway across the country and is in no financial position to look after a kid, which is why my mom has full custody. In spite of that, my dad and I are really close. We have daily video calls and send each other cards and presents on holidays and birthdays, and if it was feasible, I would totally rather live with him. That is all to say, I don't need another father figure to take his place. Anyway, the other day Molly referred to Steve as me and Opie's daddy, and I corrected her. That he is her daddy, not mine. Molly looked dismayed and asked me what I meant and asked, "Does that mean you're not my brother?" I explained to her that I have a different dad, and that her dad is my mom's husband, but that doesn't mean he's my dad. I reassured her that I'm still her brother, and I love her and so on. Steve shot me a death glare, and my mom just looked sad. Molly seemed to accept my answer, and we carried on with what we are doing. Later, my mom took me aside and told me she was sad that I hadn't accepted Steve yet, and called me petty and cruel for pushing your issues on a little kid. She said that, like it or not, Steve is her husband, so that makes him my father figure and that I need to find room in your heart for both of your dads. I told her that Steve is not and never will be my dad, and told her that just because you hate my real dad doesn't mean I have to throw him away like you did. I was worried I would lose my temper even more than I already had and left the situation to cool off. In the time since, Molly has been asking me incessant questions about my dad and why my mom left him. She slept with her gym buddy, but I'm not going to tell Molly that until she's older. So for now, the story is that my mom just fell out of love with my dad. Steve has been avoiding me like the plague and being passive-aggressive when we have to interact, and my mom has been bugging me to apologize to him. She's also been trying to find excuses for me to skip my video calls with my dad, but I'm not going to ever do that. Still, I'm worried I may have opened a can of worms I won't be able to close. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at all, buddy. Your mom cheated on your dad, broke up their marriage, and expects you to treat her husband the same as your dad? She's the a-hole here. Steve is an innocent victim unless he's the aforementioned gym buddy she cheated with. I get him wanting to be close to his stepkid too. As long as he isn't pushing a father-son relationship too hard and is an otherwise decent person, I'd cut him some slack. He might just be hurt and think you hate him. Maybe try for an uncle-nephew style relationship with him if it's comfortable for you. But your mom? Yikes. She's trying to force it way too hard, and that will never work. Just don't let any well-deserved bitterness towards your mom spill over to Steve, unless he really deserves it though. I have a few friends who are step-parents, and it's rough. No, Steve was not the one she cheated with. That guy dumped her after 2 weeks when he realized he'd have to deal with me. Lol. Anyway, not to rant, but in short, I don't like Steve because he treats me like a little kid. Literally one time he tried to make me go to bed at 7:30 because that was Molly's bedtime. He calls and or texts me every 30-ish minutes when I'm out of the house because apparently I could be kidnapped at any times. I am cordial and polite with him, nothing more, nothing less, and plan to speak to him as few times as possible once I move out. Not the a-hole, and for once on the sub, we have an evil stepdad story, lol. In all seriousness, you have no obligation to accept anyone as your dad if you don't want to. All you did was tell your sister the truth, a truth she was going to find out anyway, and I think you did it in a very respectful and gentle way. Your mom trying to force you to connect with her husband and trying to drive a wedge between you and your real dad is concerning. And her husband's issue might be that your relationship with your dad is interfering in their perfect picket fence life and reminding them of your mom's past cheating. Good luck, you're going to need it. Thanks, friend. And yeah, I have a feeling you might be right about the picket fence thing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for disobeying my mom and stepdad and telling my half-sister the truth? So, I, 17 female, have a sister, Leah, 10 female. Leah and I share the same mom, but my stepdad is her dad. My dad died a few months before my mom got married. My parents were not together when he died, and I knew my stepdad while my dad was still alive. My stepdad, for years, has tried to take over as the dad in my life. He wanted to adopt me and change my name. He tells people I'm his daughter and that he's my dad. My mom does the same. She was really angry with me for a couple of years for putting an end to the adoption dream. Then they decided that Leah didn't need to know, and so they have always told her we're full sisters, and it just took them a while to have her. Leah has often questioned why I call her dad by his name. It has always been something I have told my mom and stepdad they need to fix, because I would tell her the truth someday. They said I was not allowed to, that I could see this as a chance to let my stepdad be just my dad, and to stop with the childish nonsense that I have been keeping up for the last decade. Leah grew more and more questioning about it. So, a few weeks ago, after telling my mom it would happen, I told her the truth. I showed her photos of my dad, told her I still loved her, but that her dad was not mine. She asked if I disliked her dad, and I told her simply he could never replace my dad. She told me she'd feel the same way if hers died and mom remarried. I told her I was glad she understood. She asked me if it made me sad or mad when people said a wrong thing about him being my dad. I said it did, that I didn't like it much, but that I tried to not hold it against people. When my mom and stepdad realized I told Leah, they were so angry. I was grounded for 3 weeks, for going against them and for putting Leah in a bad situation. I argued back at a time that they were the ones who lied. My stepdad said it was not a lie, because despite legally and biologically not being my dad, he was the one who was there. He would be the one walking me down the aisle one day. He would be grandpa to my future children. And he's the one who will have been my dad for more than a decade. I told him he'll always be my stepdad for a decade, or 2 decades, or 3 decades, but that step will always be there. They're still angry, and they upset Leah by correcting her and trying to make her make me call her dad my dad. So I feel bad that now she's got pressure on her for doing what doesn't upset me, and it has been pointed out by my mom that it's all my fault. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Please get out of that house as quickly as you can. Your mom and stepdad are the ones acting childish. The adult thing to do is to admit the truth, rather than live a lie. My dad literally visits the grave of my mom's first husband at least once a year, and encouraged my older sister to have a relationship with her father's family. Your mom and stepdad are too immature to be proper parents. And it's funny that he just assumes that he'll be there to walk Opie down the aisle or be a grandfather, as if they're not doing everything to convince Opie to cut them off the second she can. Exactly. Pretty sure both those things require her to consent to his involvement. Years of mental and emotional abuse, because this is what it is, probably mean he'll be lucky to get a card at Christmas. Your 10-year-old half-sister is more mature than your mom and stepdad. Not the a-hole. They're delusional and horrible and thinking they can erase your dad from your life. Honestly, every time they try to say you're his daughter, I'd have spoken out. It's so disrespectful to your dad and to you. Your parents are massive a-holes. I honestly don't understand it. Not only are they delusional, but it also seems like they haven't really thought this out. It seems like Opie still has her dad's last name, since she said that the stepdad had tried to adopt her and change her name. Do they really think that they can hide the fact that she and her sister have different last names forever? Her sister is 10. All she would have to do is see one piece of mail address to Opie, and their tower of lies would instantly come crashing down. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to do a cake for my stepsister? I, 20 female, and my stepsister, Clara, 28 female, never had any problems before. We stayed civil with each other, mostly because we actually don't interact that much, so there's no room for fights since we just don't see often. Until now. She's getting married in a couple of days, and my brother-in-law asked me for something a week ago. A cake. I do cakes and sell them, but not for a living, just so I can get a little bit more money to pay college. So I don't have experience doing such big cakes for big events. Brother-in-law told me it's not a big wedding, so I don't have to worry. But it's a decently sized cake for at least 80 people. Still big, but something I can manage. So I said yes. I sent Clara a message asking for specifications, and she replied with screenshots of cakes from Pinterest. Nothing more. I had to push her further so she can give me exact ideas for the cake, since all her replies to my questions were, "It's literally the images I sent. Can't you see?" Whatever. Days passed and I sent her a quick sketch of the cake, and she didn't reply. Another day passed and I sent an image of all the things I bought for the cake, so she can tell me if that's the things she asked for. But again, nothing. So, I then told her how much it would cost a cake, and that if she can please pay me the half now, so she can pay the other half later. This time, I finally got an answer. A call. She was fuming and demanding an explanation of why I'm charging her for the cake, practically yelling at me. I was confused by her reaction, and I had to explain to her that it's literally my job, and that I already bought all the things for her cake, so all I'm asking is for half of the payment. She said, how dare I charge her for a cake for a special day, that family does things for each other without expecting something back, and more BS like that. Long story short, she's not paying for anything, and she made sure to let it very clear that she's not giving me a single penny. Yesterday, she called me again and asked me how her cake is going. I told her I'm not doing anything since she's not paying, so if she wants a cake, she can ask someone else. She yelled and cried, saying I'm a selfish witch, that I don't care about her, and that there's no time for her to get another person. So to please stop being a witch and help her out. I laughed at her and hung up. Later, my dad called and told me that I'm an a-hole for laughing at Clara when she's in distress, and that just make a stupid cake so she can stop complaining about me. I admit, I actually can do her cake since I already have the things, so that led me thinking that, well, maybe I'm being a salty a-hole. I can do her cake, I have the things already bought and her sketch made, so I don't lose anything. My mom told me the exact same, and I'm genuinely starting to think that I might be an a-hole here. Am I? Not a-hole. And I'd tell your parents they should be ashamed of themselves for pushing you to let yourself be treated badly and taken advantage of. I think that's what hurt me most. They keep saying it's not a big deal, and it's getting in my mind so deep that I'm starting to feel bad. They kept dismissing my job, but when I told them that thanks for some stupid cakes they no longer have to spend thousands on my college, and they finally stopped pushing. What isn't a big deal? Next semester's tuition? Your time? Your skills? How about your relationship and reputation with the rest of the family? Or is it just your feelings? Those don't matter in the end. Which of these things that she destroyed shouldn't matter to you? Actually, I don't even care at this point. Only when I told my dad that the money I spent on her cake was for paying my college, it's when they said they'll talk with Clara. But after that, I just got kicked out of the family group and guest list. So, her problem, not gonna lie.